Good morning, everyone. It's great to be with you this morning and talk a little bit about innovation, culture, and technology and what may not be always thought of as a terrifically innovative business that I'm in. But I hope to convince you otherwise. So let's take a look here, if I can figure out how to use the device. Here we go. One of the things that I've been increasingly impressed with in my career, especially within the last decade, is just how global it really is. And really it has been from the beginning, but I think it's even more so today. There's just a lot going on all over the world. So when we talk about culture, one of the really important things increasingly in my business is to be able to understand other cultures and to be able to work collectively with people who may not come from the same background that you're familiar with. So who's Duke Energy? I think most of you know us as the local utility, probably the utility that you send a check to every month. But we are the largest electric utility in the United States, and we also have significant operations in Latin America, and we're really kind of across the whole spectrum of energy-related technologies. And so all of that is within the purview of what we attempt to develop, advance, and innovate around. And we're really part of a tradition that starts with these guys. So if you look here, Thomas Edison, most of you I'm sure have heard of him. Thomas Edison was born in Ohio, grew up in Michigan, and only had 3 months of formal schooling. He apprenticed, learned to be a telegraph operator, invented the phonograph, but really what he did for our industry was figure out how to make a product out of a light bulb, how to make electric light, something that people wanted, that was commercially available, and that people could buy. So that was his contribution. He was kind of the guy that took a basic idea and moved it into something that people could use. And Nikola Tesla, who's in the middle of this slide, was a brilliant man, could reportedly solve differential equations in his head, which made his teachers think that he was somehow cheating, but he actually wasn't. He had a significant education, but never graduated from university, as he kind of hopped around Europe a little bit in his college days and actually got into gambling and never finished. But he came to work for Edison in the late part of the 19th century. And what he did was he figured out how to really create new products and services and new ideas that would move what Edison had developed forward. So he invented the induction motor, that now electricity wasn't just about electric lighting, it was about motive force as well, and he developed a number of the technologies that enabled large central station generation and long distance transmission lines to gain economies of scale for the industry. And finally, Sam Insel, who's on your right, born in London and had no formal education, was apprenticed as an assistant clerk at age 14, became Edison's personal secretary. So these guys, I didn't mention Tesla's from Croatia, so these guys from very, very different backgrounds, upbringings, education, worked together collectively. Edison to really create a product, Tesla to extend that product to a much larger market and to get economies of scale. And Sam Insel, he really made it into a real business, a real scalable business at Commonwealth Edison when he ran that company. So we continue that tradition today. Oops, didn't quite work. Let me see if I can get back. Okay, here we go. There we go. So this is Lynn Good. Lynn Good is the CEO of Duke Energy today. She, like Edison, was from Ohio. She has degrees in systems analysis and systems analysis and accounting from Miami University of Ohio. And she's very interested in trying to figure out business opportunities for Duke, much as Edison was interested in trying to figure out how he could make a business out of electricity. And this person is Michael Reed. Michael is a PhD mechanical engineer. He's actually part of my team. Very interesting background, actually. He was born in Seattle, Washington, but grew up in Belfast, Ireland, and went to school in Ireland as well. And he is very much a Tesla-like person, very brilliant man, always thinking about how do we scale things, how do we extend things, how to create new things that people will find useful. And last but not least, this is Shi Lauren. She was born in Shanghai and moved to the United States in 1997, has degrees in accounting and international economics, and actually, even more important to what we're doing here lately, is she is a native Mandarin speaker and is certified to teach Mandarin to English-speaking people. So she comes in very handy when we try to go around the world and find ways to scale technologies here by watching and learning from what others are doing. So China is kind of a good example. This is Shanghai in 1990, actually sitting on the Bund and looking at Pudong. She came to the US in 1997, and she tells me it looked just the same in 1997 as this picture. But here's the same view. There's the same view today. So just huge growth in infrastructure, new technologies being deployed at scale, and really very quickly in the terms of our industry, where you're talking about most assets having 30 and 40-year lives. This is very quick development. So what we've done here and elsewhere around the world is looked at this experience, learned from this experience, and then we bring those learnings back and incorporate them for the benefits of our customers here in the Americas. So here's some specific examples of what I'm talking about in terms of continuing innovation and kind of the nexus between different kinds of cultural drivers and innovation. So today, if you look at how people use electricity, it's really quite different than back in Edison's day. Although Edison would recognize much of what we're doing with electricity today, a lot of this is really kind of new. So you look at rooftop photovoltaic, for example. You look at the electronics that are being more and more embedded into the built world, building controls, flat screen TVs, temperature controls, Nest thermostats, for example. Those things are really very different, as is the flow of electricity, which in Intel's day, what Intel perfected was a way to build a large central generating station and then move electricity long distances along kind of a one-way pipe to a customer. Today, electricity is increasingly flowing all over the place on the grid, which is very different. So how do we deal with that? Well, the way we deal with that is through a number of new applications and devices. And all of these that I'm showing you are really kind of nascent. In other words, they're still emerging. These aren't really commercial yet today in a way that's economic. So we look at things like smart breakers, like intelligent appliances, like LED lighting and sensors. Those things are still really being applied today. And the heart of making all this stuff work seamlessly is computing power and communications power. And this is kind of a good story too. This little thing right here, which I will attempt to show you, is a computer, and it's pretty powerful. It's 512 megabytes of random access memory. You can see how small it is. It costs $35, and was actually developed by a foundation called Raspberry Pi, P-I, in the United Kingdom that is set up as an educational foundation, and they develop teaching tools. So this was really designed to teach kids about computers, because you can see everything. It's all right here, and it's cheap, and you can play with it. So the point of this is this kind of computing power is being increasingly embedded in things that use electricity. And it's really changing the way that we interact with electricity in the world. There we go. And all of you, I'm sure, have a smartphone or two. And more now, all these things are talking via smartphones. And so that's really becoming the hub that we use to control how we interact with our environment. All enabled by that computational power. In fact, just because I brought it with me, here's the next generation of the Raspberry Pi. It's 4 times as powerful, 10 times as fast, and you might be able to see that it's even a little bit smaller. This costs $58. That costs $35. So, point being that more and more computing power is going into the world, and this is actually the core of a Samsung smartphone. Okay, so I'm going to kind of hopefully carry through a little bit of a theme here around the Raspberry Pi, because it really is, the computational power really is the heart of much technology development today. So in Charlotte, this is the solar array that I just brought up is just northwest of Charlotte, and it is at a site that also has a fairly large battery. So what we tried to do over the course of about 2 years was figure out how to use the battery to make up for the decrease in electric output from the solar panel when a cloud passed over it. What we found was that with the existing embedded communications and computational systems, it would take roughly 15 minutes from the time the signal went from the solar array saying, hey, I've lost power, to the battery, for the battery to be able to offset. Well, 15 minutes, the cloud's gone. So what we did is we used a Raspberry Pi and put it in the field, right between the solar array and the battery, so that they could, both things could talk right to that Raspberry Pi, and the Raspberry Pi could then send the control signal so that instead of 15 minutes, it now takes 200 milliseconds, which is good timing. And what that says for us is, you can see here the solar output, the battery output, and then the voltage is the blue line. So we've gone from a very, very ragged performance on the grid to very smooth as a result of that little piece of innovation for 35 bucks. So it also comes in useful in the rest of our business. We have some new nitrous oxide standards that we have to monitor for at our power plants. And the existing monitors are actually are incapable, really, of economically measuring to the new standard. So we went in a lab down the street here on South Tryon, and using the same Raspberry Pi, created a monitor for about $1,000 that will meet the new standard. So a couple messages, I guess. One is the whole issue, I think, the whole confluence of innovation and culture is what enables this kind of stuff to happen. So the guys that worked on this include a fellow from Charlotte who's been with Duke Energy for 30 years, a fellow from Croatia who just joined about 2 years ago. We've had some interaction with some of our Chinese counterparts on this. And all of that comes together across those cultures to create something new. So with that, thank you very much.